And now here's Dan Wooding with today's guest.
Welcome to today's Front Page Radio, and we are going to talk with a lady who has the most wonderful name of Jane Austen Cissie Graham Lynch. One of the most amazing names I've ever heard. But she is actually the granddaughter of Billy Graham and the daughter of Franklin Graham. So first of all, Cissie, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't think I've ever been introduced by my full name before.
Now, tell me, how on earth did you get the Jane Austen part of your name? Why did your mom and dad give you that name?
It's actually my grandmother's name, and it's also my mother's name.
Oh, it's nothing to do with the writer then, is it?
No, it's spelled different as well. So I've inherited it from two amazing women in my life.
Oh, great. And how did Cissie come about?
Well, I think it would have been confusing having three Jane Austens go about. So day one, since the hospital, I have three older brothers, and the name Cissie.
Yes, yeah.
Since day one.
Oh, that's great. Well, we're going to talk about your various projects with Samaritan's Purse and the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, but just take us back to your early life. What's your very first memory of your granddad?
I would say, my first memories of my grandfather and my grandmother, I would say, are spent at their house outside of Asheville, North Carolina, in a little community called Montreat.
Uh-huh.
And their house is a very unique house that represents, I believe my grandmother's personality perfectly. Mm-hmm. And just spending the summers up there, up there on the mountaintop with them, I would say would be some of my first memories, of my grandparents. And
it was a pretty humble place, wasn't it? It was a bit like a log cabin. And, I've been there once, and I was amazed that such a well-known person would live in such humble surroundings.
Oh, yeah, it's a gorgeous log cabin that my grandmother, designed early on, and they built it, and that was their retreat. And that's the retreat that they lived in, all year long.
Now, did you know at the time how famous Billy Graham was?
I didn't. Many people ask. It's all I've known, so I don't know any different. But especially, as younger, I got to travel with my dad a lot, to my dad's own events and to my grandfather's events. So, I knew at a young age that my life was quite different, but my mom kept us with a humble background, so, I always came back home to a small town in North Carolina and, lived a very quiet, humble life there, but also had the blessings to travel the world with my dad and my grandfather.
Now, your dad was a bit of a rebel, I understand, and were you a rebel as well?
I don't think I would define myself as a rebel, but there were times in my life that I did try to hide from the Graham name and be my own person and go my own ways, but the Lord had different plans for me, and He didn't let me go too far, so I wouldn't define it as a rebel.
Now, why did you try and run away from the Graham name then?
I think, you grow up. I grew up in a small town. Obviously, everybody knows who you are and has preconceived ideas of you. And, I wanted to test the waters. I wanted to do my own thing. And maybe I rebelled for a little bit, but I had a very strict mother who would not... She did not let me go, too far off the beaten path.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
which I'm so thankful for.
And so what sort of brought you back, to work with your dad?
Growing up, I had three older brothers, but they were way older. So as I was growing up, I was somewhat of an only child at many times. And I got to travel a lot with my dad.
Yes.
And I think it was my freshman year in college, I believe, as I did a around-the-world trip with my dad as we went to go visit different projects of his around the world. In India and Africa and the Middle East. And in Asia, we went all the way around. And I've always had a passion for Samaritan's Purse, but it was that trip that captivated my heart of what my dad does and how the Lord has honored my dad, because I believe my dad, it's in the power of never compromising the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful.
And with that, you see how Samaritan's Purse has gone in parts of the world where nobody else has before.
Yes.
And doing quality work and doing it well and doing it with love that opens up opportunities to share the gospel.
Just tell us a little brief history of the ministry. I understand your dad sort of was adopted in a way by the gentleman who started it, and then eventually took it over. Who was the guy? Was it Bob Pierce who started Samaritan's Purse?
It was Bob Pierce. Bob Pierce also, started World Vision, and then he started Samaritan's Purse. And it wasn't too far into it that he asked my dad, to take it over. And I don't think my dad had quite, at the time, knew what to do with it. But he went out to California, grabbed the boxes, and he moved it to Boone, North Carolina.
Yes.
I think the 2 secretaries, I believe, quit. It was my dad and some boxes.
Yeah.
And then slowly he hired a secretary, and they were upstairs of a doctor's building working, and now it's grown into the capacity it is.
Yes.
Helping millions around the world. And Bob Pierce obviously had the vision and taught my dad many great things.
Yes. And was it Bob Pierce that led your dad to the Lord?
No, sir. My dad came to know the Lord, I would say, rededicate his life where he lived his life in his early 20s. After he, I guess in your terms, after he rebelled for a while. Yes, yeah. The Lord brought him to his knees after one summer working in the Middle East in Jordan.
Yes. Oh, that's what. Because I understand his mother was pretty strict like your mother, and maybe your mum inherited Ruth Graham's ability to control kids.
They actually, my mother and my grandmother were best friends.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And they had very similar personalities. They were both a lot of fun with a great personality and always something up their sleeves. But they were strict and but in the most loving way.
Oh, that's great. Well, before we go on to talk about your work today with Samaritan's Purse and Billy Graham Association, when I interviewed your brother Will, I asked him about the last days of Ruth Graham up there at the house when she was so seriously ill. And he said the grandkids went in to say goodbye to their grandma. And he asked her, had she any last words for him? And according to Will, he said, she told me, don't shoot my animals, because he was a hunter. And, you would imagine Ruth was going to say something super spiritual. Were you involved there, Cissie? Were you called in to say goodbye? And can you recall her last words to you?
Actually, I was not there. I was working in Liberia, Africa at the time.
Uh-huh.
And they knew she didn't have too many days left, so they had called me home. I was actually on a flight when she passed away.
Oh, boy.
But I do remember that summer being in her bedroom the last time.
Yes.
And, she always had a sparkle in her eye. And like you said, she had some sarcastic, humorous comments up to the day that she passed away, and she always had a comic relief time.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Graham can be very funny as well without even realizing it, And,
yeah.
Did you ever see the other side of Billy, or was he always lovely old granddad?
Oh, absolutely. I've learned definitely from my family. I've seen, I guess, through the examples of my grandparents and of my parents of humility.
Yes, yeah.
Being humble and loving the ones, even the one person. If you're in a crowd of 1,000 or if you're in a crowd of one,
yes,
you're the same exact person.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I've definitely learned that from watching them over the years. But my grandparents, both of them, had a way of making you feel special if you were the only person in the room.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we're speaking with Jane Austen, Cissie Graham Lynch. But we're calling her Cissie, yeah. Now, before we talk about one of your projects, which is Ransom, tell us about your hubby. How did you meet him, and when did you get married?
My husband and I, we've been married 4 years. Last Christmas Eve, or not Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. So it's been 4 years. We met through a mutual friend in college. And actually, my mom, I would say, adopted my husband in some way as a mother. She became kind of a mother to him, and that's really how I got to know him. So she fell in love with him before I did. But he plays in the NFL, and he just finished 3 years with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now he's a free agent.
Wow.
So we will see where the Lord calls us later this month.
So if there's any NFL people listening, we've got somebody here. What was his position in the team?
He's a safety.
Okay.
So he plays defense.
Wow. So he's a pretty big guy, is he?
I don't know if I would define him as big, but he's very fast.
Oh, that's great. Well, Cissie, one of the projects you're involved with is called Ransom, and I believe you have a website which is www.ransom.tv. Tell us a little bit about that. That's a very intriguing name.
You know, Ransom is a ministry of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, and it's a website that is targeted for young adults. And it's a website that we want to be authentic. Mm-hmm. We want to be real. We want to face, the real issues of today that Christians should be facing. Christians should be the one answering some of these tough questions that people have.
Such as? What would be some of the tough questions?
I think for each person it changes, but let's talk about, our generation that's facing, lots of depression, if it's sex, if it's alcohol, sex before marriage.
Yes.
Pornography, things that are very deep issues and can cause lots of pain and hurt. Mm-hmm. And it's, we as believers in the hope of Jesus Christ, we can find healing and hope in the Scripture, I believe. And with Ransom, so we want in a genuine and an engaging way to reach a generation. And I believe this is not the generation of tomorrow that we're trying to reach. This is the generation of today.
Today, right. So what age range would you think this would be aimed at?
I would say young adults, 18 to 30.
Right.
Give or take, a few years.
And what about the name? Where did that come from?
Well, Ransom, in the Gospel of Mark, it says, "For the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many." And I believe, many of us who know Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, we've been ransomed from something. We have a story to tell. And on Ransom, we want our users to be a part of the website, and it's generated for our users. So our users can upload their own story. And I've recently, uploaded my story to Ransom, and it's how I, overcame an eating disorder for years. And finally overcame it. And James 5:16 says we should confess your sins before others.
Yes, yeah.
And I believe with confessing, you find healing, you find freedom, and, you find almost forgiveness for yourself. And once you have forgiven yourself from any of these issues,
yes,
you can allow the Lord to work in your life. And we want these stories to be encouraging to others who are going through the same thing.
So you said you had an eating disorder. Was it overeating or undereating or what?
It would definitely be undereating.
Yes.
You face so many young girls today are facing image issues, and I suffered through it in high school. And it started with that, but many turns into other issues, and it turned into a control issue. But I believe with anything a person struggles with like that is selfless.
Right.
You become selfish. And that's where the root of it was, is I was being selfish.
So how would you do this then, Cissie? You would eat and then make yourself vomit, or what?
No, it would be that I attempted that many times. I could never accomplish that. But I was addicted to pills.
These were slimming pills.
Laxatives all the time.
Okay.
I didn't eat. And through that, I was actually going through 2 heart surgeries as well.
Oh, no.
It became it was definitely a control in my life.
Yes.
And it's painful, and Satan has a grasp, and captivate somebody's heart, and it's hard. It's a vicious cycle that's hard to get out of.
Right. So how long did that last, and how did you turn the corner?
I would say about 3 years, but it was nights and nights of just crying, Lord, let me see myself through your eyes. It was a painful time, my mother by my side many nights. But I left college and I went to Thailand to work for a semester. And it wasn't something that just happened. It was over time. And I think my time there, I was there to serve others and not myself.
And so the attention went off you and went on helping others then? Absolutely.
And not that I say anybody that's struggling to that needs to go on a mission trip and you'll be healed. But from my personal experience, I was being selfish. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about myself the first moment of the day and the last thing at night.
Wow. Were you actually overweight, or was this just, a concept that you had yourself?
No, I believe it was a concept I had of myself.
Wow. What are some of the other problems that Ransom is addressing?
Last summer at one of the Billy Graham evangelistic events, we had a ransom tent and a ransom board where people could come up and write their ransom notes, is what we called. And that's where we got the inspiration of people uploading their own stories. And we saw people who said they were being ransomed from years of adultery, but they were forgiven.
Yes.
Years of depression, 8 suicide attempts, medical institutes, death, cancer, pornography. So we see, this generation is facing things. There's so many hard issues that a young generation faces. And Satan wants to destroy our heart and our soul and to think we're worthless. And through Ransom, we want people to find encouragement through other people's stories.
Yes.
And hopefully pass it along, and maybe upload their own story of how Jesus Christ has ransomed them.
In the old days with Mr. Graham, he used modern technology, didn't he? But it was a little different with George Beverly Shea and Cliff Barrows and Mr. Graham, and now you're moving into a whole different arena with this tech-savvy generation. Is this a big departure for the Billy Graham Association?
No, the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association has always believed in using whatever means it is to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. And they were very advanced at their time, when radio was coming out. That was one of my grandfather's first ministries, was on radio. The music at the time, with swing bands and different things, that was very cutting-edge music at the time. They've gone into Hollywood, and they made Christian films. They've used different media outlets all throughout the history of the organization.
Yes, yeah.
So today is no different.
Right.
We will use the Internet. We will use social media because that's where people are there, and they're asking questions. And they can go to many sites and ask questions, but if it's not getting the truth, that Jesus Christ loves them and has created them in their image and that they're perfect.
Yes.
But we fall short because of our sin, but all we need to do is to accept him into our life and to love him, and he will walk us through it.
And again, what's the website for Ransom?
It's called ransom.tv.
Yes.
And you can see us on Facebook on Ransom. Twitter is We Are Ransom.
Yeah.
So there's many outlets to follow us.
Now, my dad, who sadly has passed away, had no idea about all this modern technology. Does Mr. Graham understand Facebook and computers and that, or does he need help with that?
Well, at 93 years old, I don't think he's trying to learn.
Yeah.
He's not tweeting. Let's put it that way.
Now, another thing I understand you're involved with, Cissie, is a thing called the Children's Heart Project with Samaritan's Purse. And you've got a DV documenting 3 children involved in the project. This has just been released on February the 22nd. Tell us a little bit about that.
Children's Heart Project is obviously a project, like you said, of Samaritan's Purse. And it brings children with life-threatening heart defects where surgery is not available in their own countries, and we bring them here to the United States where doctors and hospitals, facilities donate their time and their services to do the surgery. And then we have host families and host churches who take care of these families, or the child and the mother, to 6 to 8 weeks. So we just recently, the DVD was just released. It's called 3 Hearts, and it documents when I was a senior in college, I did an internship with Children's Heart Project. And it follows my journey as an intern and to bring 3 children over. And it is an incredible process. You know, this is very fearful for the mothers coming from Mongolia, the deserts, never been on a plane, who have never dreamed of going to the United States, to come over here into a whole different culture and to hand their child over to have heart surgery, you know, and to trust these surgeons to take them. I mean, you see so many emotions throughout the whole DVD. I really encourage people to watch it, to challenge themselves, or maybe their small group or their Sunday school group, and challenge maybe to raise some money to bring children over.
Right.
We need more hospitals. We need more doctors who are willing to. These kids have a death sentence, and this is their only option.
What sort of problems are they facing then?
Each case is different. The 3 children in this movie all had the same issue, and that's why this hospital took them. It was called tetralogy of flow. Now, if you want me to get into the scientific of it, I could not do that from a doctor's standpoint. But you will see these children go. 2 of the boys were teenagers, and if without the surgery, they don't have much time to live.
Wow, that's great.
In the United States, these are fixed so quickly as a newborn child. But these are kids that you're not going to live past 20 if you don't get the surgery.
Now, what I find very interesting, Cissie, is that your family appear to all be world Christians, not just American Christians. Why is it important for you to be a world Christian?
I mean, that's what Jesus Christ has called us to do. And even at his time, Jesus Christ walked around and helped those in need. And that's what my dad has taught me, is that you can't go just preaching the gospel. You have to earn the right to do it. And you have to go in here and if it's with the effects of war or famine, like you were talking about earlier, or tsunami, an earthquake, these people are in need. And we go there and help them in the ways that they need help. And we love on them, and you open up opportunities to share the gospel and earn that right. And the Lord commands us to take the gospel to all ends of the earth. And I'm just so fortunate to be able to watch great examples do it before me, that I can't help have it just a passion in my heart to do the same.
Oh, that's wonderful. And have you ever been in great danger on one of these trips?
No, sir. I don't believe I've ever been in great danger. But, I mean, anytime you're traveling international as an American, I believe it is very dangerous.
Yes.
And you have to be very careful and respectful when you go over to other countries and travel. Right.
Well, we've been speaking with Jane Austen Cissie Graham Lynch, known as Cissie, and we'd like to thank you, Cissie, for being on the program today. And again, the Ransom website is?
Ransom.tv.
And so we want you to check that out. Also, the Billy Graham website, I think, is at bgea.org.
Yes, sir.
And get more information. So, Cissie, we want to thank you very much for being on the program today, and we ask our listeners to pray for you and the ministry you're involved with.
Oh, well, thank you, and thank you for letting me be a part of your program today.
Great. God bless you.